Major League Soccer is in fact back in 2023. That is right. Soccer season in America has commenced. 2 matches under their belts now for the New York Red Bulls. I'm James Burley alongside Nick Guzman. This is our second year covering the team for WFUV Sports. We were there for the home opener on Saturday, March 4th, against Nashville SC, a 0-0 draw. That was their second game of the year. They opened up on the road against Orlando City, 1-0 to the Lions of Orlando on a penalty from Facu Torres to make it 3 points for Orlando in the opener, 1 point for New York in their second match. Currently on the outside looking in the playoff spot, but I think it's a little early to get in that conversation. Nick, overall, first impressions of the first 2 matches from the Red Bulls?
First impressions, you can look at this 2 different ways. One, the lack of goal scoring. Red Bulls have not scored a goal in their opening 2 matches, but also just how locked down they've been on the defensive side of the ball. Just one shot on target through those first 2 games, and that one shot on target was the penalty in the Orlando game. Against Nashville, we were there, James. Nashville didn't really create much throughout the entire of that game. The Red Bulls definitely had the better of the chances, but now it's just about finishing it off. But I think, the Red Bulls brought in Van Zier. They brought in players they brought back Elias Manuel, players who can create offensively, and I think the goals will come once the team gels a little bit more. But the fact that the team is this cohesive defensively is definitely a positive sign so far.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to like about the Red Bulls' first 2 matches, while you can also take a lot away and say they've got 1 point from a possible 6. You mentioned the guys they keep on the offseason. I think that was the story for the Red Bulls, is the firepower that they loaded up top. They kept Elias Manuel, extended the loan there, and they brought in Dante Van Zier as the new DP striker, and they bring in Corey Burke as another striker from Philadelphia Union. So you really expect that this team addressed the issues of not being able to score goals last year, and that's kind of petering over into 2023, but it is still very early. Dante Van Zier, we saw him make that debut in the 75th minute or so against Nashville. Didn't have much to do, but did you see anything specifically from Dante that you liked?
You can tell by his movement that he's a quality player and that he's been playing, and scoring goals in Belgium. And, the gelling with the squad is something that's going to come over time. What I liked from the Red Bulls in that game against Nashville was they created some chances. Manuel had some chances to score. The Red Bulls got in behind Nashville, just about finishing and getting that goal to go. But I think when you think about the weaknesses of this Red Bulls team and what you saw from what we saw last year, that right wing-back position, right back, Dylan Nealis didn't really cut it a lot down the stretch. Cameron Harper has looked incredibly, incredibly solid in these first 2 matches. And if he's a guy that can really solidify himself in that position, the defense is looking incredibly strong as we get underway in this MLS season. It's just about the Red Bulls scoring goals, because I think they brought in that firepower, as you mentioned, and it's just a little bit of gelling now is needed to get on the board in MLS play.
Yeah, and I think Cameron Harper is worthy of the praise because he was really good as a right back against Orlando and Nashville, and then when Lewis Morgan came off at halftime, he looked really good in the attack as well, I thought. So that's a really good sign that some of the younger players who maybe didn't get featured a lot last year are really starting to come into the fold now with Cameron Harper. You see, I think Frankie Amaya sort of followed that trend last year, although maybe he had some higher expectations. There's been a lot of talk about Luquinhas. He's coming in the midfield designated player. Last year really came in with a big splash, but kind of calmed down towards the middle of last season, and he hasn't really looked at his best, super sharp yet for the first 2 matches. The Red Bulls' defense has been an absolute revelation, but in attack, it's not just the strikers. Wouldn't you agree? I think the midfield could do more to be progressing the ball, and I think there's something missing in the not just the areas in and around the goal, but in the areas building up towards reaching the goal.
And with a player like Luquinhas, who you're expecting to create those chances for, you always see it in little bursts. You'll see a great turn from Luquinhas, a great touch to get away from a defender, but that final product, the final pass, I think he needs to shoot the ball more. When he gets in those positions in positive areas on the pitch, it just seems like that there's a little bit of indecisiveness going there. But you see it in bursts, which makes it frustrating that there is a little bit of a lack of end product right there. But you're right, it's not just on, it was Tom Barlow and Manuel who started up top against Nashville. A lot of the Red Bulls offense last year, you would get a lot of activity from wingback, from whether it's John Tolkien, Dylan Nealis pushing forward. Now, I think you have enough firepower up top that these chances need to be finished off. But I think in terms of creating the midfield, Amaya and Cáceres, I think I would say they outplayed the Nashville midfield, but maybe didn't put their stamp on the game as much as they could have in that one. And I think that's part of the reason why there's a lack of chances created and a lack of finishing.
Yeah, and that's a Nashville midfield that really is familiar with the
Very
New York
familiar.
Red Bulls. That's Dax McCarty and Sean Davis. That's two holding midfielders who are former New York Red Bulls captains. Alex Muyl as well. Thought he scored a goal in the second half. It was later ruled offside. All three of those guys contributing to the environment at Red Bull Arena, which you and I both agreed was pretty impressive compared to last year's freezing, windy opening day. About 18,000 people on hand. I thought it was a really lively crowd, really inspiring to see that back at Red Bull Arena, and hope for more of that down the rest of the season. With that said, though, I think Nashville, they're a decent side from top to bottom. They came off a 2-0 win against New York City FC, and they really didn't look threatening to the Red Bulls at all in defense. And we asked Coach Struber post-match about how impressed he's been with his team's back line this season. Take a listen.
Thanks, Coach. You said that you wanted to see more in attack from your team, but over the first two games, your team hasn't even surrendered a shot on goal from open play yet. How impressed have you been by the back line so far?
Yeah, when we speak about the back line but the whole behavior, I would say, from the team against the ball is very synchronized. It's also very difficult against us to create chances in this direction. My boys, I think, this could give us more the feeling we can go with a little bit more brave in risk moments in the offense. We are so stable. This could, that we go in more risky moments in the offense, and we can handle one moments in the rest defense. Andres is on a very, very good level. Shawnee is very reliable. I think also the sixes with Frankie and Christian are monsters. I think we have to work more how we bring our power in the opponent's box, how we be in these moments also cleaner.
So while it was something of a dull affair in the Red Bulls home opener, they're looking to play Minnesota United to a tough game this Saturday. That's a tough place to play, not only because Allianz Field is a really great place, but because they're expecting 6 to 12 inches of snow this week in Minnesota. We're not sure if Cameron Harper or Lewis Morgan will be available for the Red Bulls. Harper came out late in the game with an injury. Morgan came off at halftime. Coach Struber post-match said that he wasn't 100%. We don't have the details there. In Minnesota, they're not going to be with Emmanuel Reynoso. We don't know, probably not. But they still got to win in their first match. This is going to be a tough place to play, but we saw the Red Bulls in Toronto last year, very early in the year, in the cold, with a very big win in their opener last season. So how would you expect the Red Bulls to fare against Minnesota?
Minnesota in March is always going to be tough. The Red Bulls are going to need all the firepower they can get. So having Harper and Morgan, that would be a total bonus if those two guys can suit up. Interesting to see sort of the line decisions that Struber has to juggle. Is Van Zier at a spot where he can start up top? And if so, what's the combination that you want to work with? These are decisions that you have to make. I don't think Van Zier will start. I don't think he's quite there yet. It'll probably be Barlow and Manuel again. But maybe more of an impact off the bench, getting off the bench from him slightly earlier. But it's hard to go to Minnesota. It's hard to get 3 points. But the Red Bulls, you say all the positive play they had against Orlando, positive play they had against Nashville. They haven't scored a goal yet. So at some point, they have to kind of get off the floor and put the ball in the back of the net. It's going to be tough to do in Minnesota, but it's the kind of game where 3 points there could really sort of serve as a baseline for just pushing you forward for the rest of the season. That would be a big, big win for New York. And then after that, they've got Columbus on March 18th, which is a home game. So if you can get a result in Minnesota, then come back home against Columbus, it would be a great way to sort of, jumpstart this campaign. It's been a little slow. We've seen positive signs from New York, but they need a little bit of a spring.
And I think a lot of people are expecting that once the goal eventually comes, that they're going to come in bunches, because this team is improved on paper from last year, and that's a lot of young players who remain. So they should be an exciting side, and I think that the Minnesota game, it's going to be tough, and I think Minnesota probably going to amend the way they play, as Nashville did to the Red Bulls, dropping back in that low to mid block in the 4-4-2, and I think the Red Bulls are going to have to deal with that a lot this season, as they normally do. But moving forward, let's see if the Red Bulls can get a spark in front of goal and start to change things around. Good things, but not great just yet. We'll be following the Red Bulls all season long for WFUV Sports. Stay tuned for more post-game analysis such as this one. For WFUV Sports, I'm James Burley. Nick Guzman saying so long